So let's start with today's themes analysis from the Hindu newspaper. RBI cuts rate interest by 50 basis points. Interest burden to ease. Now ये इसमें क्या इम्पोर्टेंट है, जो बेसिस पॉइंट्स हैं वो क्या होते हैं. तो सबसे पहले तो ये आपको समझना पड़ेगा. अ बेसिस पॉइंट इज़ 1/100 of 1 percentage point. It simply signifies the changes of the interest rates and are often stated in basis points. So हम एग्ज़ाम्पल ले लेते हैं, जैसे कि अगर इंटरेस्ट रेट 10% है तो उसका जो बेसिस पॉइंट रहेगा वो 10.01 बेसिस पॉइंट रहेगा. इसका जो साइन होता है वो ये होता है. दिस इज़ द साइन ऑफ बेसिस पॉइंट. इसे कैलकुलेट कैसे करते हैं ये भी आपको समझना पड़ेगा. सो फॉर एग्ज़ाम्पल इट इज़ 1 बेसिस पॉइंट. वी हैव 1 BPS. तो इसको हम कन्वर्ट करेंगे 0.01% बेसिस पॉइंट में, 0.01% में, और इसको डेसिमल में हम कन्वर्ट कर सकते हैं 0.001 BPS. इसका फॉर्मूला क्या होता है? द फॉर्मूला टू कैलकुलेट इट इज़ percentage is equals to BPS upon 100. So for example we have 300 BPS. ये डिफरेंट एग्जाम्पल्स में दे रही हूँ आपको फॉर्मूले के बेसिस पे. सो 300 अपॉन 100 दैट इज़ 3%. तो इस तरीके से BPS कैलकुलेट करते हैं. बेसिकली इसका जो यूज़ है वो फाइनेंस में होता है टू डिस्क्राइब द परसेंटेज चेंजेस इन इंटरेस्ट रेट्स, स्टॉक प्राइजेस और अदर फाइनेंशियल मेट्रिक्स. तो ये इंपॉर्टेंट है. आप चाहें तो इस पर थोड़ा नोट्स भी बना सकते हैं. उसके साथ साथ इसमें जो इम्पॉर्टेंट पॉइंट एक जो रिटन है दैट इज़ कैश रिजर्व रेशियो. ठीक है, इसके ऊपर भी इम्पॉर्टेंट आप पॉइंट्स बना लीजिएगा. कंसेप्चुअल क्लैरिटी आप ले आइएगा, नोट्स बना लीजिएगा कंसेप्चुअल क्लैरिटी के हिसाब से. So in a bid to spur growth at a time when inflation has come under control, RBI of India's Monetary Policy Committee on Friday voted 5:1 to slash the policy repo rate. रेपो रेट कैसे डिसाइड होती है? मिनिमम रेपो रेट क्या होनी चाहिए, ठीक है, RBI कितनी मिनिमम रेपो रेट रखता है, ये सब आपको पता होना चाहिए. सो अभी फ़िलहाल जो वोट किया गया है वो 5:1% है, सॉरी 5:1 रेशियो में है. उसके साथ साथ रेपो रेट किस तरीके से डिटरमाइन की जाती है वो भी इम्पॉर्टेंट है. बाय अ बिगर देन एक्सपेक्टेड 50 basis points to 5.50% with immediate effect. This is the RBI's third repo rate cut since February and will further reduce the interest burden for borrowers, but will also cut the interest earned on savings by डिपॉजिटर्स. यानी कि अगर आप सेविंग्स बैंक अकाउंट में रख रहे हैं तो उसका भी इंटरेस्ट कटेगा. सिर्फ लेंडिंग जो इंटरेस्ट है, जो बोरोवर्स के लिए जो इंटरेस्ट बर्डन है वो ही नहीं घटेगा, बल्कि जो इंटरेस्ट रेट है डिपॉजिटर्स का सेविंग्स बैंक अकाउंट में, उसमें भी रिडक्शन देखी जाएगी. Separately, RBI also decided to reduce the cash reserve ratio (CRR) by 100 basis points. CRR is very important because ये एक तरीके से बैंक का सिक्योरिटी होता है to nullify the inflation and also enhance liquidity. ठीक है, इसके ऊपर आप नोट्स बना लीजिएगा. Over the course of this year, in an effort to provide sufficient and durable liquidity to the banking system, the cut in CRR would be, that is the cash reserve ratio, would release primary liquidity of about rupees 2.5 lakh crores to the banking system by December 2025. So ये जो की वर्ड्स है CRR, BPS और रेपो रेट, ये इम्पॉर्टेंट है. एंड उसके साथ साथ CPI इन्फ्लेशन भी है. CPI इन्फ्लेशन का क्या रोल होता है GDP में? हाउ इज़ इट कैलकुलेटेड, व्हाट रोल डज इट प्ले, ठीक है। सीपीआई इन्फ्लेशन का जो प्राइस इंडेक्स है उसका भी जो बैंडविड्थ किया गया है डिसाइड ऑफ 4% किया गया है विद इन अ बैंड ऑफ ±2%। एक रेंज रखी जाती है कि 2% से नीचे ये नहीं जाना चाहिए, ठीक है। इट कैन गो अबव 4% बट नॉट बिलो 2% वाइल सपोर्टिंग द ग्रोथ। जी, ये सीपीआई का क्या रोल है, दैट इज़ द कंज्यूमर प्राइस इंडेक्स, ठीक है। इसका क्या रोल है ये इम्पॉर्टेंट है, आप कंसेप्चुअल नोट्स बना लीजिएगा इसके ऊपर। नेक्स्ट वी मूव ऑन टू 800-year old शिवा टेम्पल अनदर्ड इन मदुराई। An 800-year-old Shiva temple of the later Pandya period has been unearthed at Udampatti, a village in Melur Taluk of Madurai district, Tamil Nadu. Inscriptions on the culvert are significant as they reveal how the temple has been financially independent. ये इम्पॉर्टेंट है बिकॉज जो एंशियंट टेम्पल्स होते थे वो भी ट्रेड कंडक्ट करते थे। ये रीसेंट फाइंडिंग्स में पता चला है। ये चीज़ आपको बहुत कम जगह लिखने को देखने को मिलेगी, बट इट इज़ ट्रू दैट जो एंशियंट इंडियन टेम्पल्स थे वो भी ट्रेड में इन्वॉल्व थे। सो ये एक फैक्चुअल पॉइंट है। अब इसमें ध्यान देने वाली क्या बात है, जो साउथ इंडियन किंगडम्स हैं मेडिवल पीरियड के, ठीक है, वो इम्पॉर्टेंट है, लाइक पांड्याज, चोलाज, चेराज। These kingdoms are very important for your next prelims. So medieval India पे भी फोकस हो सकता है। Dated to 1217 to 1218 CE. C. Santhalingam, archaeologist and secretary of the Pandya Nadu Center for Historical Research, who deciphered the two Tamil inscriptions found on the stone bases, says that they are being dated back to 1217 to 1218 CE during the reign of Mahavarman Sundara Pandya. So this was the king during which this temple was being established or constructed, whatever you may say. Thenna 1 is actually the title used by the Pandyas. It has also been mentioned that the tax due to the land should be given to the god of Thenna Vanis Varam of Attur for its day-to-day expenses. The ancient name of Uddam Pitti was called as the Attur. ये वन लाइनर क्वेश्चन हो सकता है कि उद्दम पित्ती का एंशियंट नेम क्या था, तो ये दिस इज अत्तुर। Kerala lab develops tests to identify deadly amoeba. The State Public Health Laboratory, one of the apex referral laboratories in Kerala, has developed its own molecular diagnostic test kits to identify 5 common species of free-living amoeba which are toxic to humans and which can cause amoebic meningoencephalitis, a highly fatal brain infection. Cases of amoebic meningoencephalitis are being reported frequently in Kerala. So we identified Acanthamoeba spp as a pathogenic organism, one of the acute encephalitis syndrome AES samples that we received from the Tiruvanant Government Medical College. It was the first human sample in which they could identify the organism after they developed the molecular diagnostic test kits. So there are originally 400 species which are free living. Out of this, only 6 are fatal for humans, pathogenic to humans. ठीक है, और ये 6 हैं: Naegleria fowlera, Acanthamoebia spp, Vermamobia, Firmiformis, Balamuthia mandrillaris, and Franchinae. The examination of cerebrospinal fluid samples, we could make only a presumptive diagnosis that it was trophozoite causing encephalitis, and this Naegleria fowlera being that one that causes most fatal diseases, our protocol was to start the patient on the drug cocktail for N. fowlera immediately. Next, we move on to water management in India needs a new recourse. सो वर्ल्ड वाटर डे 2025 की थीम क्या थी? जो थीम थी दैट वाज ग्लेशियर प्रिजर्वेशन, एंड ऑल्सो ये मार्च 22 को डिक्लेयर किया गया था बिकॉज वर्ल्ड वाटर डे जो है ऑब्जर्व किया जाता है मार्च 22 एवरी ईयर. ठीक है, ये ईयर भी 2025 का जो है उसे डिक्लेयर किया गया है इंटरनेशनल ईयर ऑफ ग्लेशियर्स प्रिजर्वेशन बाय द यूनाइटेड नेशंस. March 21 is World Day for Glaciers, observed for the first time this year, which also marks the beginning of decade action on cryospheric science. Please आप क्रायोस्फीयर पे थोड़ा रिसर्च कर लीजिएगा. क्रायोस्फीयर बेसिकली दो टाइप के होते हैं. एक तो जो आपका आर्कटिक और एंटार्क्टिक है, दैट इज़ कॉन्टिनेंटल. ठीक है, और दूसरा जो होता है वो माउंटेनियस क्रायोस्फीयर होता है. सो इसमें डिफरेंसेस जो हैं वो आप फाइंड आउट करके नोट्स बना लीजिएगा. वाटर इन ग्लेशियर्स फ्रॉम साइंस टू पॉलिसी एंड द नीड फॉर रीजनल एंड लोकल एक्शंस. द यूनाइटेड नेशंस वर्ल्ड वाटर डेवलपमेंट रिपोर्ट 2025, which was on the theme Mountain and Glaciers Water Towers, has drawn global attention. This focus is relevant especially in context of rapidly changing mountain cryosphere, which will have a profound effect on downstream water resources. The cryosphere concerns the frozen portions of the earth. So a link that overlooked. Water connects both these geographical entities as there is clear upstream downstream linkage. The human activities upstream impact the downstream environment. Although the hydrological cycle operates independently as natural processes, at the subsystem level, it is modified due to human activities. These include damming and diversion of water from rivers for agriculture and other purposes, drawing of water from the surface water bodies and groundwater aquifers, and the pollution of water bodies. All these changes result in alteration of fresh water to the coastal areas and open ocean by affecting the marine environment. Current water management practices often overlook this linkage, which is now emerging as major global concerns. So the activities we do on land basically affect the marine ecosystem, because we all know कि ultimately जो merger होता है, जो drain होता है rivers का, वो oceans में ही होता है. सो उसकी वजह से जो ओशनिक इन्वायरमेंट है, जो मरीन इन्वायरमेंट है, वहाँ के जो एनिमल्स हैं, जो फौना है, फ्लोरा है, वो काफ़ी इफ़ेक्ट होता है, काफ़ी पोल्यूटेड होता है. द कंसेप्ट ऑफ अ सोर्स टू सी अप्रोच was proposed as a part of Manila Declaration. This is very important. In January 2012, Manila Declaration में S2S अप्रोच अपनाया गया था. ये इम्पॉर्टेंट है, सभी कॉम्पिटिशन्स के लिए इम्पॉर्टेंट है, so you can note it down. So this declaration focuses on furthering the implementation of global program action for protection and marine environment from land-based activities adopted by 65 countries. It proposed to improve cooperation and coordination at all levels. So basic premise S2S approach का Earth is unique system ये बता रहा है that fresh marine and water systems are a part of single continent. It is, as I told you, that it simply means that if one part gets affected, or if any anthropogenic activities is being carried on in one part, it may affect the other part as well. In 2012, the analysis report of land-based pollution sources working group, United Nations University suggested two major adjustment. First क्या था, देख लेते हैं क्या टू मेजर एडजस्टमेंट बताए गए हैं. फर्स्ट क्या था, टू ओवरकम द ट्रेडिशनल डिवाइड ऑफ वाटर, और रैदर द आइसोलेटेड कंसिडरेशन ऑफ रिवर्स, एक्विफायर्स, लेक्स, लार्ज मरीन इकोसिस्टम्स एंड ओपन ओशंस. सेकेंड क्या था, टू अप्लाई सोशियो इकोलॉजिकल सिस्टम स्केल in design and scientific analysis of transboundary diagnostic analysis and causal chain analysis to arrive at the solutions. Now both these suggestions deserve the attention of all the countries. Now what are the problems with India's water management? There are several challenges that include heterogeneity in the availability of water, unequal access, increasing pollution, climate change, and conflicts. A study of Niti Aayog 2018 reported that water stress might affect 600 million people with a likely loss of 6% of the GDP due to water stress. The Aqueduct Water Risk Atlas of the World Resource Institute observed that India is one of the countries which could face extreme water stress impacting agricultural production and disrupting the economy. In 2022, the Central Pollution Control Board identified 311 polluted river stretches of varying severity. Along 279 rivers in 30 states and union territories, India produces an average of around 1.7 lakh tons of solid waste a day, of which around 53% is only treated. A significant amount of untreated waste finds its ways into the water bodies. India uses an average of 60.5% extractable groundwater resources, with states such as Haryana, Punjab, and Rajasthan reporting more than 100% use. Around 25% of the groundwater assessment units are under various categories of risk. Over 60% of irrigated farming and 85% of drinking water are derived from groundwater reserves. Groundwater quality is also declining. Water security faces growing threats. वाटर मैनेजमेंट पे मेंस में क्वेश्चंस आते हैं, और ये हर ऑल्टरनेटिव ईयर्स आता है. वाटर मैनेजमेंट हो गया, ग्राउंड वाटर मैनेजमेंट हो गया, ठीक है, पोल्यूशन का क्या इफेक्ट हो रहा है, क्या वे फॉरवर्ड होना चाहिए. सो ये आर्टिकल हेल्पफुल रह सकता है. So India's water management problems are a result of fragmented and sectoral approach. So fragmented and sectoral approach is one of the main cause. Another reason is because rivers and other water bodies are often interstate and multiple political jurisdictions are involved in administering the water body, the same water body. There are four different governance systems to address natural commons such as rivers and water bodies. Private property owners operate on local panchayat level, local or panchayat village governance commons. Local government operates on state governance commons. State government operates on the national government's commons, and the national government operates on the global governance commons. The challenge is to coordinate activities under the different tiers, have them as a part of the nested governance system, and devise an appropriate water policy for the country. Now, what could be an approach on the fringes? 1987 में जो फर्स्ट नेशनल वाटर पॉलिसी है उसे इंट्रोड्यूस किया गया था. उसके बाद काफ़ी अटेम्प्ट्स हुए हैं टू मॉडिफाई एंड इंक्लूड द फीचर्स, different features. In 2015, the committee was constituted to restructure the Central Water Commission and Central Groundwater Board to form the National Water Commission. 2019 में मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ जल शक्ति ने सेट किया था कमिटी ऑफ इंडिपेंडेंट एक्सपर्ट्स टू ड्राफ्ट नेशनल वाटर पॉलिसी. इसमें सजेशंस क्या आए थे? टू एड्रेस दी चैलेंजेस. उसके अलावा स्टेट्स ने भी प्रिपेयर किया था. द S2S अप्रोच हैज़ येट टू गेन अटेंशन of the policy planners. These are the two cases study initiatives being contemplated the following S2S approach. The first address the nutrient management of Delhi water bodies. Now here nutrient management of Delhi water bodies. जब nutrient enrichment होता है तो क्या होता है, ये important है. We know that the oxygen levels go down. यूट्रोफिकेशन इसे हम कहते हैं. enrichment of nutrients in water bodies. Second is a proposed project under S2S future program to examine relationships between human settlement and the S2S landscape in the Indo-Gangetic basin. Focus must be on linking targets 6.5 integrated water resource management and 14.1 land-based activities by involving all stakeholders, reducing the gap between science, policy and execution, and facilitating innovative interventions. So next we move on to maintaining India's progress in food safety standards. इस साल की जो वर्ल्ड फूड सेफ्टी की जो थीम है दैट इज़ फूड दैट वाज ऑब्जर्व्ड ऑन June 7 इज़ फूड सेफ्टी साइंस इन एक्शन. It is an opportune movement to reflect India's journey evolving from a narrow focus on preventing food adulteration to embracing more comprehensive science-based approach to food safety. But despite these, there are some gaps and challenges also. So India's journey on food safety began with the Prevention of Food Adulteration PFA Act of 1954 that viewed food safety as a simple binary issue, food being adulterated or not. This approach treated all contaminants alike, whether they were intentionally added adulterants, food additives, pesticides residues, veterinary drug residues, or even naturally occurring toxins. The quantity consumed was not considered. Turning point कहाँ पर आया? With the enactment of Food Safety and Standards Act 2006, which established Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, that was FSI, drawing on international best practices, particularly those of Codex Alimentaries Commission. The FSI adopted risk-based approach to food safety. This included setting of maximum residue limits for pesticides, defining safe levels of food additives, and adopting standards for contaminants and veterinary drug residues. By 2020, FSI managed to develop and align India's food safety standards so that they were almost on a par with those in advanced countries. However, this rapid progress also exposed certain weaknesses. So, what are the gaps and challenges? There is a lack of India specific toxicological studies. Most safety standards, including MRLs for pesticides and acceptable daily intake, that is the ADI, values for food activities are based on international data, which may not accurately reflect Indian dietary habits. That's very obvious that the proper research of the toxical elements in food as per Indian standards or as with respect to Indian aspect is very important. We are just following the international data, which may not accurately reflect Indian dietary habits, agricultural practices, or environmental conditions, because these are different as compared to different countries. The absence of total diet study (TDS) further complicates risk management. Such are essential to assess the cumulative exposure of consumers to various contaminants through their entire diet. Without TDS, India relies on fragmented data which weaken the scientific basis of the standards. उसके अलावा चैलेंज क्या है? Effective risk communication. Technical terms such as MRLs, ADIs are expressed in minute quantities, that is parts per million or ppm or parts per billion or ppb, which are difficult for consumers to understand, that can lead to confusion, especially when safety limits are revised. So, for instance, the decision to revise the MRL for pesticides from highly restrictive 0.01 mg per kilo to more practical 0.1 mg per kilo led to public concern, with many interpreting it as a reduction in safety. So these are the affiliated risks. An example of legacy issue: persistent legacy issue किसका है? That is the regulation of monosodium glutamate, that is MSG, which is a flavor enhancer and has been extensively studied, consistently found to be safe. Since 1971, the Joint Expert Committee on Food Additives has declared MSG safe for consumption. In 1987, the JECFA allocated an ADI not specified status to MSG. All countries follow this global consensus now. In India, MSG regulations has evolved significantly. Initially, MSG was only allowed in meat products, but its usage has gradually been permitted in all foods, with a mandatory warning label that it is unsafe for infants. This is a sharp contrast to other countries where MSG is recognized as a safe food additive and outdated warning labels have been removed. The warning label in India is misleading because glutamate's naturally occurring compounds, chemically identical to MSG, are abundant in every food such as tomato, mushroom, and garlic, as well as breast milk. As a result, consumers are often left with mistaken belief that MSG is inherently harmful, leading to unnecessary fear and confusion. So, actually, MSG is not that harmful. Consumers are often left mistaken belief that MSG is inherently harmful, leading to unnecessary fear and confusion. Such a legacy approach contradicts global scientific consensus and exposes the challenges of balancing consumer concerns with scientific evidence. It also reflects broader problem, which is India's tendency to allow some outdated regulations to persist, even when they conflict with the current scientific understanding. So, what could be a path to greater scientific rigor? Investing in India's specific research, including localized toxicological studies and comprehensive TDS, is vital to understand cumulative exposure on contaminants. Risk communication should be improved by simplifying scientific messages and replacing confusion labels, such as those for MSG, with clear evidence based information. Strengthening capacity of risk assessors through continuous training ensures that they stay updated with latest science for sound decision making. Regular reviews and updating standards in line with new research while maintaining transparency are essential. Finally, building public trust through an open, consistent engagement with stakeholders including industry, consumers, and public is the key. So these steps will help India uphold an advanced commitment to safe, science based food systems that protect public health and promote informed choices. सो ये मेंस ओरिएंटेड टॉपिक है और ये बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट है और इसमें एमएसजी से रिलेटेड क्वेश्चन भी पूछा जा सकता है, ट्विस्ट करके पूछ सकते हैं दैट इज़ एमएसजी रियली हार्मफुल और नॉट, सपोर्ट योर आंसर विथ योर व्यूज़, अब इस तरीके से पूछ सकते हैं. और उसके साथ साथ वी ऑल नो कि फूड सिक्योरिटी जो है वो मेंस का टॉपिक रहा है, सो इस हिसाब से ये काफ़ी इम्पोर्टेंट है. Lastly, we come to the topic which is related to RBI and the government, जो अभी हमने फर्स्ट स्लाइड में पढ़ा था, जो बेसिस पॉइंट्स और उसके बारे में CRR के बारे में, उससे रिलेटेड है ये कंटेक्स्ट. The RBI and the government are now aligned on boosting growth. The RBI Monetary Policy Committee decisions on Friday show that the central bank is now univocally choosing growth in perennial growth inflation trade-off. This is the correct approach at this time. The first major decision to cut the repo rate by 50 basis points to 5.5%. उससे पहले 2 cuts हुए थे 25 basis points के each in February and April, and latest retail inflation coming to 69-month low and generally exhibiting an subdued trend. Price stability has now been relegated and secondary concern. So these rate cuts, once a bank transmits them to borrowers, make it cheaper for companies and consumers to borrow, to invest and purchase. Second major decision क्या है? Slashing the cash reserve ratio by 100 basis points will help with the transmission of rate cuts. The less that banks have to keep with themselves as stipulated by the cash reserve ratio, the more they can lend out, and now at lower interest rates. So it is worth noting that however that the central bank has again changed its stance. In April, it had moved from being neutral to being accommodative, indicating that it was inclined to cut rates further. It has now moved back to neutral, meaning more rate cuts in short term are unlikely, unless growth falls well short of expectations. This is a sensible stance to take given the vast uncertainties that India and global economies are facing. न्यूट्रल स्टैंस का और क्या मतलब हो सकता है कि आरबीआई इज इक्वली प्री डिस्पोज्ड टू रेज रेट्स अगेंस्ट इन द इवेंट ऑफ एन अनफॉर्सीन एंड सस्टेन्ड स्पाइक इन प्राइसेस. The monsoon is yet to fully play its role. The timing of these decisions is sound. Inflation is low and not likely to jump anytime soon. If the current factors remain unchanged, there are no major elections now that would otherwise have necessitated preemptive strong grip on price levels. On the other hand, growth is lower than it could be. RBI has projected growth in the current financial year 2025 to 26 to be 6.5%, which is no faster than what government previously estimated. अब यहाँ पर फिजिकल पॉलिसी की भी बात हो रही है. आप फिजिकल पॉलिसी के ऊपर स्टैटिस्टिकल नोट्स बना लीजिएगा. So, fiscal policy in terms of government spending has reached the limit of stimulus it can provide. So, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman and officials in Ministry of Finance have indicated as much apart from developmental and social priorities, the government has now additional defense spending to account for. Monetary policy has to set up and boost growth, and if it is good to see the RBI and government on the same page. So this can be important, ये जो article है. So here we end our analysis. I request you to like, share and subscribe my channel and give your valuable feedback for much more improvements. Thank you and have a nice day.